James, bit of a different feel around the place this week. You can tell there's a pretty big game coming at the weekend.
Yeah, it's always the same when you've got a European game. You know, the intensity of training, the work off the field goes through the roof. You know, the way the boys conduct themselves. You know, because this is why. You know, you play rugby. It's why you make the sacrifices to go to big places like the Aviva and play a huge game against a quality side like Leinster.
How's training been this week? Because despite a bonus point win at the weekend, we weren't that happy with the performance.
No, you know, I think the coaches were pretty honest with the way we performed. It wasn't great. I think defensively we had a lot of areas to improve on. There were a little other tweaks around the field that we needed to address. Obviously, it's a short turnaround, so you know it's important that yesterday's training was spot on. Today was very focused. You know, this time of the season, you've got to make sure that you put the right time out in the field, but you don't overtrain. So the boys did really well. You know, smashed a few shoulders together and made a few tackles, and it all worked on those key areas. And then we'll go into a day off tomorrow with a nice team run, and then hit the ground running on the weekend.
I'm sure the boys have enjoyed having you back. The Aviva and Leinster players are something that you're very familiar with in recent weeks, having been over there 2 weeks ago. How much have you been able to feed into the group this week?
Yeah, I think, you know, whether you're with the national team or your club side, you've obviously got a group of senior players, you've got guys who have a little bit more experience who hopefully feed information at the right time. Obviously, coaches will have done a lot of analysis of what we're facing. You know, you could easily swap some of those green shirts for blue shirts, which is kind of going to happen this weekend. I think whether you're playing against Ireland or Leinster, you can expect a very, very, very physical side to come in. You're very direct. You know, Johnny Sexton obviously pulling the strings as well. You know, probably one of the most informed fly halves at the moment. So you know what's going to come your way. It's just another thing dealing with it.
Games this weekend, closest you can get to international rugby in a club shirt?
Yeah, 100%. You know, it's going to be a full test match this weekend. For some guys who haven't had the pleasure of doing that, and obviously face the intensity, it's going to be an eye-opening experience. We're playing at the Aviva, very difficult place to go and play. Great surface there, very intense. You know, the Irish fans kind of welcome you with open arms, but as soon as they take to the field, they get behind their side, and they only want one side to win. So you have to deal with all that atmosphere, and make sure you stay focused on the task ahead.
In recent years, knockout rugby has kind of come as a little bit of surprise to this club, but I get the impression this group are a lot more comfortable with dealing with that pressure.
Yeah, if you look at what happened to Sarries, you know, I was talking to some of the boys after the last time we were in Ireland recently with England, and I think, you know, from that point of view, we'll be a better side for having dealt with that failure. I think with this side as well, if you look at Saracens as well, you know, they lost 2 semi-finals, went on to win. I think for us, we had some near misses. You know, we've probably aged and matured in, you know, with those kind of experiences. So hopefully go to Ireland and understand what it takes to finish those games off and kick on to the next level.
Top of the Aviva Premiership meets top of the Pro 12, and two sides that like to play a bit of rugby, like to score tries. We're in for a pretty big occasion.
Yeah, I think defence was going to decide this game. You know, attack's been such a strong point for both sides. There will be tries, you know, when you put those two attacking sides together. But defence, physicality, I think the set piece battle will really determine the way this side goes. You know, if you go to Ireland, you don't get those areas right, you show indiscipline. You know, you give people like Johnny Sexton shots at goal, you give them momentum. That's what causes your side problems. So there's been a big focus on making sure that, you know, we aren't our own worst enemies. We can control what we can control, and we tie it all together to put in a performance. Because some points this season we've had great attack, we haven't had great defence. Sometimes we have great defence, we haven't had great attack. It's about bringing it all together for a big European weekend.